Torah, Bereishit, page Vav, second column, middle of the page, new paragraph. Now the Rabbi is explaining why in the first Beis HaMikdash they didn't have brachas, and the second Beis HaMikdash they did. So the Rabbi is explaining the inyan of the brachas is to reveal what you're accomplishing by doing the mitzvah, that Baruch, you're bringing down Ata, the essence of Hashem, into Elokeinu Melech HaOlam. And why is that? Asher, because Kiddishanu b'mitzvaysav, a mitzvah makes us one with Hashem, and therefore we're able to do it. So in the first Beis HaMikdash, they were able to do that without the bracha. We need to say it with the bracha. So now the Alter Rebbe started explaining what we started explaining yesterday at the end was, there's a long bracha and a short bracha. A bracha that begins and ends with Baruch is a long bracha. A bracha that doesn't begin or end with Baruch, only one of the two, is called a short bracha. So he says, a short bracha begins and doesn't end with Baruch. But a long bracha like we say, Asher Yatzar begins Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam, Baruch Atah Hashem Reifei Chobasam Maflasis, Hamapil, all those things. It's a long bracha, short bracha. By the way, there's one more. As for instance, after Baruch Hu, yeah, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam Yotzei Erev V'Cheshach, and then it begins Baruch Atah Hashem Yotzei Ha'Me'eres. Then the second bracha Avasolam doesn't begin Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam. Because there's a din, and the same thing with Ashman Esrei. The Amida also, you begin Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam, Baruch Atah Hashem Mechayami, Magen Avram, and then begin Ato Gibor. It doesn't say begin Baruch. All the brachas Ashman Esrei end, but because there's a din that's called Bracha Smucha L'Chavito, a bracha that's next to a friend, so to speak. The ending of the early of bracha 1 is the beginning of bracha 2. So therefore it's not necessarily called a short bracha, it's just using, because it's right next to each other, mamish, together. So therefore you have Baruch Atah Hashem at the end of the bracha, which is called the beginning of the next bracha. Anyway, the Alter Rebbe said, to understand what that means, long bracha, short bracha. Gam lahavim ma'u lashim chesem. It's interesting. The Alter Rebbe is asking on the expression of the Gemara. The Gemara should say begins with the bracha, Baruch, and ends with bracha. It doesn't say Messiah but Baruch. Chesem. It seals a seal, chsima, with a bracha. Wow, what's this expression? It should say begins and ends, not begins and seals with the bracha. He said, there's hidden worlds and there's revealed worlds. We say in davening, Baruch Hashem Elokei Yisrael, min ha'olam v'ad ha'olam, from world to world. Now what worlds are we talking about? From the hidden worlds to the revealed worlds. Concerning the revealed worlds. He quoted this passage just before. It says, Misham yipari vayel arba roshim arba naharis. 4 rivers keneged arba machnes Shechina, corresponding with the 4 camps of the Shechina. He quoted this before, which comes into the level of Bria, Yetzira and Asiya. Okay, now, it says, V'nor yetzim me'eden. What are you doing? Just leave everything as is. Leave everything as is. The river comes out of Eden to water the garden, and then it says Umisham Yipared. From there it separates and it becomes 4 rivers. So the Medrash Kabbalah Chassidus explains the 4 rivers correspond with the 4 camps of the Malachim. Saul, Gabriel, and Eliyahu. Right? Now,
why river? Why did they compare it to river?
Because a river is something that flows. It flows. Normally it comes from a high place and flows, right? So that's a lukus coming down.
But it freezes also.
Yeah, but they're supposed to be warm. Now, then the pasuk says, "Umisham yipared." From there, it becomes separated, and it becomes 4 roshim, 4 rivers. Now, the malachim we know are in the world of Bria. The malachim are in the world of Bria. Bria is already yesh miyayin. Bria is yesh miyayin. Bria begins separation. Atzilus is a world of Eitzel, close. It's a lukus. Bria, by definition, begins yesh miyayin, where it's not the same level of unity as the world is in Atzilus. So this is what the pasuk says. There's a level of Eden, which is Tainug, higher than Atzilus. V'nor yetze me'eden lahashkis sagan. Okay, that's all in the world of Atzilus. The river comes out, which is the level of Chochmah, by the way, and it comes into the level of Gan, which is 53 Parshas of the Torah, Sedrus of the Torah, and then Misham Yiparei, from Atzilus, it comes into Pirud, separation, which is a world of Bria, and that's where the 4 groups of the 4 rivers, the 4 groups of Malachim are in the world of Bria. So it's actually speaking that now we have today Gan Eden, but originally at the beginning of creation, it wasn't Gan Eden. If you look in the Chumash, it says the river went out of Eden to water the Gan, to water the garden. So there's 3 levels. There was Eden, that the river came out from. Then you have the river, and then you have the Gan. Then you have Misham Yiparim. Then you have the level of Peter, the level of Bria, which is the level of Malach. So he says, "Ubishtaushis yudidus hamadregas madregach madrega b'slapshus abayin sorim." Into the 70 angels in charge of the nations, Nasa Alma, the Pruda, becomes the world of separation, V'sham Yashachiz of Yanika Leklipis, V'sitir Achra, and over there, once you lower itself, it comes into an ability for evil to nourish Mikdusha Kaviyach, from Kedusha. In other words, like this. When you have only Kedusha, evil doesn't exist. Like the Pasuk says in Tilim, Lo Yigur Chara. Lo Yigur Chara means even doesn't even touch you. Doesn't live there, doesn't touch you. Cannot exist. In the realm where Kedusha is revealed, evil cannot exist. When Kedusha starts coming down into the world of Bria, which is, it's for the 4 holy worlds, but it's still within Kedusha itself, it's already a level of Pirud, relatively speaking. So then, evil can begin nourishing from Kedusha. And that's the problem. When Jews go into Galus, that means the nations where the Jews are begin nourishing, and they're getting that, like this, the existence of evil is really limited. It only exists like over the shoulder, I have no choice, I got to give you the food, I'll throw it over the shoulder. It's not the pneumius saratz, it's not what Hashem really wants in the world. So we learned evil was only created, evil is a means to an end. In other words, there's no purpose in evil itself. The only purpose of evil is in order for good to be good, you need to have the opportunity to do evil. But that's not the purpose. The purpose is not for evil. The purpose of evil is really for good. For good to be good, you need to have evil. So therefore, like it says, normally evil, and even there he's going to say this even now, it's also like that. But evil exists, what's called the external will of Hashem. It's not the real purpose. L'mashal, a guy wants to work. Yeah? The purpose is not the work. The purpose is to make a living. In order to get money, I have to work. But my intent is really making money. And even that, what's the purpose of money? If you can't buy anything with money, money is worthless. Like the story in the Gemara, she says, robbed the money, said, what is this? Right? The purpose of money is to buy things. In order to buy things, I need money. In order to have money, I need to work. in order to get a job, I need to go to school. It used to be like that. You need to go to school. So there's the ultimate goal, let's say, is to buy things. In order to buy things, there's a lot of external wills along the way. But that's not real. The real kavan of my existence is not to work. It's a means to an end. Working is a means to make money. Money is a means to buy things. And buy things is in order to live. So evil is not created by Hashem because he wants evil to exist. There's no purpose in evil. Therefore, evil, generally speaking, gets a very minimal amount of godliness life. The highest, the life that Hashem normally gives evil is extremely limited. The problem is when a Jew feeds evil. We learned many times, there's no bracha negative mitzvahs. There's no bracha to Hashem mitzvahs not to eat pig, or not to speak lashon hara, not whatever, not to kill. You know, somebody's about to kill somebody, or not to kill him, and he doesn't make a bracha. And exactly based on what Al Rebbe explained in the yesterday's thing, it's understood very simply. A bracha is to bring down kedusha. Right? Baruch, we're bringing down Hashem, Melech Haolam. Why? Because Kitshana b'mitzvah. An action can bring down kedusha. Not doing something passive cannot bring anything down because you're not doing anything. So what's the purpose of negative mitzvahs? Don't do this. Don't 365 don'ts.
Showcase the bill.
No. Because Hashem says like this, the battle of good and bad, good has to win over bad. Now, normally bad is very, very weak because Hashem doesn't really want it. When a person does evil, because we have a neshama kedusha, we're holy, we actually feed evil a very powerful power. So in other words, what happens is when a person does what they're not allowed to do, 365, they're actually strengthening evil. When Jews go into Golus, they strengthen evil. Like this, the nations don't have any power of their own because it's evil, dark. Darkness is the lack of light. When a Jew does an Aveda, or a Jew goes into Golus, or in a higher level, when Kedusha comes into the world of Bria, over there evil can start existing.
But if there's
in fact, it says in Kabbalah like this: Atzilus is all Kedusha. Bria, majority good, a little bad. Yitzira, 50-50. This world, mostly Ra. Rishon Geivenberg. Because the lower Elokus comes down, the more, in other words, the less you feel Kedusha, automatically evil becomes stronger. More opportunity for evil to exist. Correct.
Can you expound more when you say that evil is weak? It can be extremely potent and destructive and lethal.
That's because we strengthen that to give it that power. Evil itself is a non-existent entity because in order to have real existence, you have to be connected to God. God is the real existence.
Goodness is weak and only
Goodness?
Yeah.
Goodness is not weak. Goodness is powerful.
Same thing with evil.
No. Evil seems to be powerful. Let me ask you a question. Darkness is very, very powerful. People are afraid of the dark. Yes or no? Now, what is darkness? Nothing.
Lack of light.
Lack of nothing. Correct? Why are people afraid of darkness if darkness is really nothing? Because it's not realistic. It's in our perspective. In our perception, evil is powerful. If somebody takes a balloon and blows it up, okay, and it covers the door, if you're stupid, well, the door is blocked. There's no way in the world I can get through. All you need to do is take a little needle, and that's it. It's nothing again. That balloon is hot air. It's not a real existence. It's perception to be a real existence. What?
Evil can be very formidable, very...
From our perspective, when we strengthen it. When we strengthen it, that's all. When we strengthen it, it can be very powerful.
Somebody has a tablet. For example, for Chas v'Shalom, there is Torah for food here.
Yeah.
And somebody has a tablet to
To eat it. No, and they don't.
So it's very strong. It's very, very strong.
What's strong?
The tablet is strong.
The taiva is strong.
Yes.
Now, why did Hashem make that taiva strong? The purpose of the taiva is that the person shouldn't give into it. And the stronger the taiva, and the more the person doesn't give into it, brings out the strength and the power of the person.
Yes.
That the greater the challenge that you overcome brings out your greater power.
Amen.
No, that's the goal. That's the purpose. The purpose in creation, in the overall picture of creation, is not for the taiva.
The tablet feels good.
So,
It's here.
what feels good? The nefesh habamis feels good, and the nefesh halikis feels good.
Definitely Nefesh HaBamis.
Nefesh halikis is killed. So of course, it feels good for nefesh habamis.
Yes.
No.
It's not fair.
So when a drug addict takes drugs, it feels good. But it's killing him.
But at that time, nobody's gonna come.
That's the question. Is the person in control of their heart? Is the person in control of the heart? Or is the heart control of the person? Okay, let's go further. So he
At
said,
what point evil is created?
in the beginning of creation.
Was it a creation?
At the beginning of Chumash. Bereishit bara Elokim. Beginning God created heaven and earth. There was darkness all over the world. Now, in davening we say, it's a pasuk in Yeshaya changed at the end. Yetzer Or, right after Baruch Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, Yetzer Or, God formed light, uberei cheshach, and created darkness. Eisa Shalom, he makes peace. And the end of the pasuk in Yeshaya is Berei Ra, God created evil. We don't want to say that in davening, so we say Berei Asakol. Okay? Now, at the end of the first Parshat, what we read, Simchas Torah, Bereit Chasim Bereishis. At the end we say, Vayaro Elokim es kol asher asa, v'nei tov ma'od. Not only was it good, tov ma'od, really good. And the Medrash says, what is tov ma'od? The Malach HaMavis. You know, really good, not tov. Tov ma'od is the Malach HaMavis. Hashem created darkness. The purpose of darkness, to create darkness, was because in order for light to be light, you need the opportunity of darkness.
So it was created. It's
Yes.
not an imagination of a human being.
No.
So there is an entity.
There's a machlekes the Rabbi brings down in a maimah at the bottom. The Rabbi brings down, and I've studied Rabbi's maimah, but the Rabbi comments at the bottom. In halacha, there's an argument: is darkness an entity or darkness is only the absence of light? So the Rebbe explains, because the Pasuk says God created darkness, it means it's an entity. And yet, so the Rebbe explains there's two levels of darkness. There's a level of darkness that's the absence of light, and there's that, like by the plague of darkness, they actually felt, v'yomish cheshach, they actually felt darkness. But there's two levels of cheshach. There's a level of cheshach, the lack of kedusha, and then you can have active evil. Active evil is a creation that Hashem creates cheshach. Now, what's the purpose of that? Hashem creates things for a purpose. The purpose of darkness is to be transformed to light. Because when darkness is transformed to light, Shlomo Melech says, that's the ultimate level of light.
It's not transformed, it's enlightened.
No. When you transform darkness to light, there's a level of not doing evil, and then there's a level of taking your desires of evil and take that power of desire and want only good. That's transforming darkness to light. It's a big difference. I can be passive and not do evil.
But here, Rebbe
The
says-
greater thing is to take your desire to do evil and transform that to use it for good.
the Rebbe says that Piyut is the beginning of evil.
The beginning of evil.
Piyut is.
Yeah. The shaila is, how much period is it? How much separation you have? You can have more and you can have less. Yes, it comes into the four things of Biyah. And then from Biyah goes into Yetzirah. Well, it's Biyah he calls it, not Biyah.
After the Piyut.
Yeah.
When you introduce light to darkness, you don't compare it, actually.
You dispel
merging
darkness.
it.
No, you don't. When you bring light into dark, you're throwing darkness away. You're not transforming it. Because the second the light is shut, the darkness is back. If you actually transformed it, it would stay light. That's how Chassidus explains, in the best time for the Jewish people was in days of Shlomo Melech. It was the best spiritual time, first Beis HaMikdash. Okay, Shlomo Melech ruled the world. The greatness of Shlomo Melech is spread even to the end of the world, where Queen of Sheba, Malka Shva, even came. Yeah? So the Rebbe explains in a Maimer, that was a very great level of Kedusha by the Jewish people, but it only dispelled darkness. Mashiach's coming is going to transform darkness into light. Even the times of Shlomo Melech, it was such a great light, it shone all over the world that everybody in the world, even the Queen of Sheba was officially the other end of the world, also came to Shlomo Melech. But that was only dispelling darkness.
For purpose, Rabbi, for purpose.
And the proof of it is the second the light leaves, darkness is back. If you transform it, then the light becomes dark. How do you know if a person changed or not?
What?
How do you know if a person changed or not? I'll give you another very simple motion. For a guy to be very religious in a religious environment, yeah, does not mean the guy is really religious. There's social pressure. What should he be? I don't mean now when you have cell phones to get away. So generally speaking,
Peer pressure.
there's a good peer pressure. Okay, you lived in a shtetl, everybody was from, there was nothing else to do at night, so to speak, right? And the guy's religious. That's not the true test the guy's religious. He's in a religious environment. Take him out of the environment and see if he's still religious. That proves that the guy's religious. That means a person transformed himself. It's not the light, the social pressure, so to speak, of the light of the community that keeps him religious. What happens when that community is gone, or you take the guy out of the community, that's the test if the guy's religious or not.
Vacation.
Whatever. The Rebbe quotes in the Sikh in the earlier years, people used to go to the country. In the country, the tznius wasn't the way it should have been. Other thing, and people used to say, "Echta," in the country. V'ashuv, I'll come back to the city. I'll do tshuva. Echta, v'ashuv, I'll sin and I'll come back. The point is, the true test of a frum yid that he was transformed to be frum is when nobody's around.
For himself.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's peer pressure. That doesn't mean you, as an individual, our religion, whatever. There's peer pressure involved. When light dispels darkness, it's not the ultimate power of light. Yeah, light's a bully. Light is stronger than darkness. So yeah, light pushes away darkness. But the ultimate is not when you get rid of your enemy. The ultimate was the enemy becomes on your side. That's the ultimate conquering. The ultimate conquering is not when you kill it. There's a greater level because then you destroyed evil. You dispel darkness. The ultimate is when your friend, when your enemy becomes your friend. That's darkness becoming light.
Oh.